Thanks to Fiverr for sponsoring today's video. Have you ever been asked, how was your day? And you replied, ugh, not good. I was so unproductive. Because I'm guessing you have said this before, probably often, and I know I definitely have, but why do we do this? What is it about ourselves, our culture, or the messaging that we're constantly ingesting that makes us feel so darn guilty if we are not productive 24/7? And what does productive even mean? Because I kind of feel like we have warped that word so much that it has lost all of its original meaning. The thing is, I think this pressure we're feeling, this pressure to always be doing something that is moving us forward, to improve, to iterate, to produce, it's not healthy, it's toxic, and ironically, it's not actually productive. So in this video, let's dive into why you probably aren't actually unproductive like you think you are, what the myth of productivity culture truly is, and why this myth is so toxic in the first place. If you're new here, I'm Cara, and I make videos on the intersection of money, media, and intentional living. And if you like this video, you might also like my video, How Company Loyalty Keeps You Poor, which also talks a bit about productivity culture in the workplace. So go check that one out after this video. And before we dive into why you're probably not as unproductive as you think you are, I want to first share with you guys something that has been really positive for my own productivity, for my life and my channel, and that is today's sponsor, Fiverr. Fiverr is the largest marketplace for digital freelance services in the world. Whatever project you've got going on, whether it's video editing, website development, copywriting, voiceover work, Fiverr has the freelancers to make it happen. A huge reason I've been so excited to partner with Fiverr is that 1 year ago, so last March, I actually found my video editor for this channel on Fiverr. And no joke, and I guess he's gonna see this, but working with my editor has made my life so much better. My videos improved a ton, like he knows way more about motion graphics and effects than I ever will, and it freed up my time to do more of what I really wanted to do with my channel, which is write and film videos. Within this idea of productivity that I'm talking about for today's video, working with Fiverr freelancers has actually been a really great way to make productivity this tool that benefits my life and my business versus just this stick that I use to shame myself for not doing enough. I recently started working with another Fiverr freelancer, this time a virtual assistant who has actually been helping me to make my videos into podcasts, something that many of you have been asking for quite some time now. It has been on my to-do list forever, and I've just not found the time to do it despite wanting to, which is why it has been so helpful to have the virtual assistant go through my videos, write show notes for all the episodes, and keep everything organized before launch. She has been fantastic to work with. If you are looking for talent to help you with a project or business, Fiverr helps you find the perfect one by letting you check out user reviews, a freelancer's portfolio of past work, and check out previous clients. No matter who you are, where you're located, what your budget is, Fiverr is the place to go. If you want to check out Fiverr for your project or business, head to fvrr.co/Cara Nicole to check out the services available to you and get 10% off with code Cara Nicole. I'll add that link down below for you guys to check out, and don't forget to use code Cara Nicole for 10% off. And thank you so much to Fiverr for sponsoring today's video. So first things first, let's tackle this awful mantra we tell ourselves that we are not productive. I was on vacation recently and actually thinking about this because I realized that I'm brainstorming bigger and bigger plans for myself anytime I'm just doing nothing. As in, I start thinking about the businesses I should build, the grad schools I should apply to. Should I become a venture capitalist who runs marathons on the weekends? If you pay attention, you'll see that there's this one word that just keeps popping up in all of that, and that is the word should. Not could, but should. And that made me stop and think about why I put so much pressure on myself during these periods of my life that I should be relaxing and decompressing like vacation, and instead am just scheming. Now, there's an argument to be made that maybe having some free time away from my day-to-day responsibilities gives my brain time to think about what else I might enjoy doing, but I'll be honest, I don't think that's what I was doing. I suspect I was, and am, wholly strapped into the belief that I should be constantly maximizing my time and output in a quantifiable and socially accepted way. A lot of words there, so let me explain what I mean. Basically, productivity culture encourages us to squeeze results from every waking moment of our lives. And waking moments is honestly a misnomer because some folks have managed to go beyond that and even maximize their time sleeping.
How to solve problems in your sleep. This method is used by people like the billionaire founder of LinkedIn, Reid Hoffman, to help them work through difficult problems while they sleep. Here's how.
Within productivity culture, we're constantly thinking about how we can get more to-do items crossed off, how we can get even more money at our jobs or side hustles, and how we can become faster, more efficient, more optimized. Those are high expectations for ourselves, especially to expect that constantly. And while I don't think that having high expectations is inherently a bad thing, I'm going to come to the defense of productivity culture in a little bit. I do think that in excess, it can lead to a lot of frustration, disappointment, and burnout. Think back to the whole, I was so unproductive, as a way to say whether your day was good or not. Isn't that kind of crazy? I mean, you could have had a day where you slept in, ate a delicious meal, laughed with your friends, sat in the sun with your dog, and then went to bed after watching your favorite movie, and you might still look at it with a head shake and say, but I wasn't productive. It's a bit wild when you zoom out like that. And when I say you, by the way, I am definitely talking about myself too. Toxic productivity can lead us to burnout in our work, our lives, our relationships, even our finances. Like, while yes, making and saving money is a good thing, an obsessive focus on earning and accumulating wealth can lead to financial burnout. This isn't good in the long run. Real financial health is a marathon, not a sprint, and financial burnout is a great way to be in a very tricky and difficult situation with your money. So when thinking about how to keep burnout from toxic productivity at bay, first, let's think about where the idea of feeling unproductive comes from in the first place. I think there are a few things at play. We feel unproductive because we have perfectionism mixed in with the comparison trap. If you're a perfectionist, there's a good chance your self-worth is tied to achievement, and making a mistake or not accomplishing something the way you hoped is a failure, right? It'd mean facing judgment. It'd mean proving to everyone that you're weak and inferior. Now, not really, but that's the way that we warp things in our perfectionist minds. It's like how Miles Teller's character Andrew in Whiplash is obsessed with being one of the greatest drummers in history, often drumming to the point of bleeding. Now, he's extreme, sure, but I think many of us see a part of ourselves reflected in Andrew's desperate desire for validation. Then, of course, you throw in some good old-fashioned comparison, and now you have a Coca-Cola meets Mentos mess. Because if self-worth is tied to achievement, then comparing our achievements to others is the perfect way to calculate how much we should value ourselves. Oh, my old classmate was promoted at work, must mean I'm awful and incompetent. And this random person on the internet runs a 5K every morning? Well, geez Louise, call me a Bacon Hill because I must be a pile of lard. It's not good, guys. This negative self-talk. We're calling ourselves unproductive because really we are looking over our shoulders to see what productive things everyone else is doing and that we aren't doing. And this has made worlds easier nowadays because of social media. I've said it a million times before, and I'll say it again. We know way too much about one another. Documented digital lives where we show our highlight reels is a breeding ground for comparison. And comparison, my friends, is the thief of joy. It's actually incredible to me how much all of this parallels the overconsumption ideas I talk about on this channel. But instead of collecting material items and comparing ourselves to what others own, we are comparing ourselves to what others are doing. It's the consumption of achievements and busyness, if you will. And it can be just as damaging, if not more, because beneath the surface is this feeling that we aren't enough. Whether it's overspending on shopping or chasing productivity in the name of perfection, we're trying to fill this void of feeling inadequate. And thus, anytime we fall short to the idealized version of perfect productivity we've seen from others, we feel unproductive. Which brings us to what this myth of productivity culture is in the first place. Because who's to say what productivity is? Well, let me first paint you a picture of a guy named Bob and a guy named Knob. And yes, his name is Knob. Don't make fun of it. He comes from a long and respected line of door people. Thank you very much. Okay, so Bob and Knob work the same job at the same company. But Bob, he's the kind of guy who puts in the long hours. He works over 60 hours a week. He schedules lots of meetings with his teammates to get things done. His calendar is booked with all of his various to-dos. The guy is always doing things, sometimes more than one at a time. What a guy Bob is. I sure hope I'm not setting him up to be a lesson in this story. Knob, on the other hand, he clocks out at 5 p.m. and never a minute later, working no more than 40 hours a week, and honestly, most weeks he works even less than that. Knob doesn't schedule as many meetings, he only likes doing one task at a time, and sometimes Knob can be found wandering the parking lot on a walk or even just staring at a wall. Knob is a bit of a weird guy, but I feel like we're gonna learn something from him. Because, surprise, surprise, research shows that Knob's behavior would actually result in better outcomes. AKA it would be more productive to be like Knob instead of Bob, and that right there is the myth of productivity culture. Popular toxic productivity culture demands a certain intensity from us. Long hours, always hustling, filling your calendar with time block after time block. It's a flurry of activity and progress. But here's the kicker. It's performative progress. And no, I'm not saying Bob is pretending to be productive to trick his company. Bob isn't that kind of guy. What I'm saying is that Bob thinks he's being productive. He is following the script of what he's been told a productive person does. But that trope of what a productive person does is not based in truth. Working long hours, filling his days with meetings, a constantly full calendar with no free time, these are all actions that look on the outside to be really productive, but when you hold them under the microscope of research and experiments, have actually been shown to be quite unproductive. As Forbes explains in their article on how pressure to work after hours may reduce productivity, quote, new survey data from Slack's Workplace Lab, which queried some 10,000 desk-based employees, found that people who log off at the end of the workday reported 20% higher productivity scores than those who feel the pressure to work after hours. The article goes on to interview Slack's Workplace Lab head, Christina Janzer, who says, quote, the conventional wisdom for productivity has always been if you want to produce more, just work more. This is our opportunity to myth bust. More hours doesn't necessarily mean better productivity, which is why our friend Knob is such a productivity genius, and not the type that toxic productivity culture would typically encourage. Knob works less than 40 hours a week, something that studies suggest can improve worker productivity, increase well-being, and reduce burnout. Knob's tendency to not multitask means better focus versus mentally shifting gears constantly. And those parking lot walks and the staring at the wall, well, boredom and time away from work is how we can spark creativity and innovation. I think the myth of productivity culture is so fascinating because it really nicely captures this way that our messy human emotions get in the way of logic, essentially. For you and me, logically, our best bet to get the things we want done isn't to just maximize every second of our day like we see in those viral toxic productivity videos, because actually that's more likely just to get us to burn out. And yet we might feel guilt and shame if we take a break or allow ourselves to be bored and relax. We will go right back to saying, ugh, I was so unproductive, which is just letting our monkey brains win. And companies, and honestly our economy as a whole, take this exact same counterproductive approach. This genuinely drives me crazy, so let me explain. On a company level, a great example is the 40-hour work week. The 40-hour work week is an old school tradition at this point, but it's been challenged in multiple experiments throughout the US, Ireland, and Japan, just to name a few countries where companies have started testing out shorter work weeks. In those experiments, we've consistently seen happier employees and no reduction in productivity, sometimes even more productive workforces. In the business world, happier employees means reduced employee turnover, which is a huge cost saver for companies. So you've got more money, fewer expenses. If this was some software that companies could buy, they would have nabbed it up years ago. But I think that the emotional monkey brain comes into play and we go, oh, but that's not the way that we've done things before. And boom, another example of the toxic productivity culture. And on a larger economic scale, same thing. There is significant evidence both in the US and outside of the US that safety net policies that address poverty help increase economic mobility and strengthen economies. But our emotional monkey brains say, oh, if we give people money though, they're not going to want to be productive. And there we have it once again. The myth of toxic productivity culture. Now I'm guessing that a lot of people are going to instinctively want to jump to one extreme side or the other when they're thinking about this. Either productivity culture is inherently toxic and draining, it's a result of a doomed capitalist system that can never be redeemed, and none of us should seek value in productivity. Or maybe on the opposite end, we as humans should value productivity in ourselves and our economy. Without productivity and improved output, we wouldn't be where we are today. But personally, I think as with many complex issues, the better answer sits somewhere in the middle, in that uncomfortable gray area that we don't immediately go to. Personally, my stance is that productivity culture can be a good thing. I think it's great for humans to have goals, to have things we're working toward, to challenge us and force us to work hard, to think smart, to be creative. Those goals might be supporting your family or creating a piece of art. And I think figuring out a productivity system that gels with you is a great way to work toward your goals. But productivity productivity should be a tool, not a philosophy. And when productivity moves more into a philosophy, into something that colors your daily vision of the world, I think that's when it becomes toxic. Because now productivity has become the goal, it's the metric, and maybe even the thing that you value yourself by, instead of the tool that helps you reach your goal. Going back to the larger economic framing, this parallels a lot of the issues that I have with shareholder capitalism versus stakeholder capitalism, but that is a whole other conversation for another time. Instead, I want to leave you with the idea of instrumental value versus intrinsic value. Both are concepts around what can be considered valuable and worthwhile, and I think they both relate to productivity culture really well. So instrumental value is the value of something as a means to an end. In the context of productivity, it's the things that lead to directly tangible results or external objectives. It's working overtime to meet a deadline and impress a client, or doing household chores so your home is clean. Meanwhile, activities with intrinsic value are inherently meaningful or fulfilling in and of themselves, regardless of any external rewards or outcomes. This might be taking a leisurely walk through nature or having a chat with loved ones. In my opinion, both instrumental and intrinsic value activities are worthwhile and valuable. I am not here to say what priority balance they should play in your life. But what I think toxic productivity culture fails to do is recognize both of them as valuable. There's this outsized focus put on the instrumental activities and not enough on the intrinsic ones. But just because toxic productivity culture exists doesn't mean that we have to subscribe to it within ourselves. So next time you kick yourself for being so unproductive, give yourself a little bit of grace and ask yourself where that feeling is truly coming from. But what do you think? Do you inadvertently fall into toxic productivity culture, or have you said goodbye to that a long time ago? Let me know in the comments and what topics you'd like to see me cover next down below. And if you want to see another video, be sure to check out my How Company Loyalty Keeps You Poor, where I do touch on productivity culture and 40-hour work weeks, so go check that out. Thanks again to Fiverr for sponsoring this video. Be sure to check out the link down below and use the code Cara Nicole for 10% off. And thank you so much for watching. Thank you for my patrons for supporting this channel and those on Buy Me a Coffee. I really appreciate you guys, and I will see you next time. Bye.